everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Radio Hub. Today, we're not only going to explore one of the technologies that will change the future of digital security, quantum computing. We will also get to know the story behind one of the brilliant minds leading this revolution, Dr. Meera Sarma, an expert in quantum cybersecurity, and also we are going to know her journey in this field. So thank you so much for being with us, Meera, and
Thank you
you
so much.
for your time and sharing your all your knowledge about this new technology.
Fantastic, Maria. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. And do you think you can tell us a little bit more about yourself? How did you start in this career, especially in cybersecurity? We know that maybe it's the same in UK and Europe, but here in Mexico is a more like a man field. So tell us a little bit more. How do you get interested in cybersecurity and especially in
Sure.
quantum computing?
Oh, yeah, that's a really long journey. So I'll just start by saying who I am. I'm Meera. I'm the CEO of a company called Sistel. We operate in the cybersecurity space with a specific focus on quantum computing. And my journey began years and years and years ago, so I have a background in physics. I also have a background in IT. And a long time ago, I moved into cybersecurity. We're talking more than 15 years ago. And one of my first jobs was to look at physical bombs going off and mapping it with online chatter. So I had to look at what hackers were doing online and to see, is there a connection between what happens online with a physical threat? And that led to some really interesting government level work and got me fascinated by hackers. And I started thinking, gosh, this is a really interesting group of people. So I then went on to do a PhD on how do hackers develop software.
Okay.
Because obviously, we read a lot about companies developing software. We know how they do it. We know Red Hat. We know so many companies, we know how open source works. We know closed source, and there are different models of software development and cycles. We don't know anything about hackers. And I spent 5 years chasing hackers around the world, sitting in underground chat rooms as well, trying to understand how is it that these hackers are able to work together so well when they are not even in the same place. And I wanted to really understand that when they carry out attacks, how are they developing software and how are they doing it so quickly? So yes, if you're interested, I've got I think 1,000-page PhD thesis on it, which really talks about how do hackers work, how do they develop software, and what does it mean for us? Because obviously we always look at, cyber attacks keep going up with all the investments in technology, with everything we're throwing at it, trillions being invested. We are, and cyber attacks are increasing year on year, especially ransomware attacks, for example. Now, why does that happen? To answer that is why I set up Sistel. So Sistel, I wanted to look at cyber with that lens of hackers, having spent so much time with them, having been writing about them. And that's why, Sistel was created, to look at cybersecurity with a hacker lens. And when we did that, and when we started looking at cyber with a hacker lens, we suddenly realized, this was a few years ago, about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, that I came across quantum. And the more I read about quantum computing, the more I sort of realized that, oh my goodness, I know how hackers think and work. And this, in the hands of hackers, is going to cause so much damage. Why isn't anyone talking about this? Why isn't anybody doing anything in the space of cyber and quantum? And that's when we started our journey. And we started developing our own methodologies to understand what does it mean for cybersecurity and the impact that quantum will have on cyber.
Talking about that part of your journey, you were saying that you observe hackers, right? So what challenges did you encounter along that part, those 5 years specifically?
Oh God, that was really hard. I had to develop my own tool to get into hacker chat rooms, to extract data, to understand, because it's all in conversation and there's very interesting behavior that hackers demonstrate. So I had to look at what is really happening, because they don't just say, okay, they don't have formal processes in place. So they don't just say, okay, this is a project plan, right? They are just it all happens through conversations. So one, I had to spend a lot of my time to create a tool that extracts data that I can start looking at, making sense of the software development cycles through that. And I had to physically find out where they are. So I had to find out and go and spend and see them physically, because you want to get a sense of whom you're talking to, right? You want to get a sense of who hackers are. They're absolutely fascinating because they are warm, they are kind, they are funny, they have interesting personalities, things that you don't associate with hackers because you see them as a black hoodie. The image of a hacker is always this gray hoodie with maybe a skull or something like that. They're not like that. They are fascinating people, and they all have motivations and reasons as to why they do what they do.
Okay, that's super interesting. I think it's like a whole.
We need another talk.
Of episodes. Not only one more episode. I mean, a whole mini series of that. I think is super interesting. Then you spend that 5 years doing that, understanding how they thought, how they do what they do, and of course why they do it. And then you mentioned that you find out about quantum technology and what happened next.
So then we set out to do stuff in the space because we wanted companies to start understanding the problem, which is how do you deal? Should we get a commercially viable quantum computer tomorrow? What are you going to do? Because nobody understands technology well enough, but in the hands of a few that do, this could cause a lot of damage. And that's in the last 2 years, this has really sort of taken shape because we were talking about this. We were talking about risk, quantum risk and cybersecurity at a university. We came across BT, who invited us to join the project because the UK is rolling out quantum communication, would like to, in about 2 years' time, hopefully. So we're part of a project with British Telecom, Toshiba, HSBC, looking at, our remit is to look at cyber risk to quantum communication systems, because nothing really exists in that space. Nobody really So we have started crafting this from scratch. And in the process, had to also do something interesting because where is the talent? Right? Where do you find a quantum cyber specialist? You can't. So we had to take a quantum scientist, a specialist in QKD, and train him on cyber.
Okay.
Otherwise, there is no job description for that. There is, it just doesn't exist. So this is really at a very nascent stage, if you will.
Okay, and to understand a little bit better, I mean, this is a very simple question, but what is quantum computing?
So let's start at the very beginning and look at, so the field itself is called quantum information systems. It's divided into 3 areas. You have quantum computing, under which there's something called quantum annealing that sits. You've got quantum communications and quantum sensing. And we can talk about all of these different sectors in a bit. Now, to simply say what is a quantum computer, I'm going to use a very simple example. I'm going to use an example of a library. So imagine a library that is full of books and you have to read, and these books are either open or closed, right? And they represent, your traditional computer bits. So think of them as open or closed. So let's assume you need to read the books in the library to solve a problem. Now, to read the books in the library, in this particular library, you have to read each of them and go in a sequential order to solve a problem, okay? Now imagine a magical library. There are many books, and those books are neither open nor closed. And that's called, superimposition, okay? Which means it's in a state which is neither open nor closed. And imagine that when you look at that one book, it either becomes open or closed, and it's connected to another book in the library, which will act in the same manner. And that is called entanglement, okay? But this is a magical library. Yes, so there are 2 properties that quantum computers have. It's superimposition and entanglement. But this is a magical library, right? So in this magical library, all the books can be read at the same time. So imagine how much faster you are if you're able to read all the books at the same time compared to that other traditional library that we spoke about. That's the difference between a quantum computer and a normal one. And that speed and accuracy is what makes it so interesting as a field, but also we're on the cusp of what we would call radical innovation because of that.
Okay, so that That's why quantum computing have the potential to be a revolution.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Talking a little bit more about examples, we were saying prior to this chat, like we know that IBM and Google already operate with experimental quantum computers, but what does that mean? I mean, how we can see it reflected on a practical way?
Okay, so there are lots of companies doing lots of things in the space, and if we keep cyber to the side, right, let's talk about two areas where we're seeing a lot of movement. That is quantum annealing and quantum sensing. Now, what is quantum annealing? Quantum annealing is using simulated qubits for solving optimization problems. Now, let us take the example. So again, to use a very simple example, have you heard there is something called the traveling salesman problem, right? Now, the traveling salesman problem means that, let us say if somebody if they went to Monterrey from Mexico City, the best way to go to Monterrey is easy to calculate, right? It's simple.
Yes.
Now, give me the name of two more cities.
Tijuana and Guadalajara.
Okay, Guadalajara, Tijuana gets a little more complex. Right now, you have to look at the best optimal route for the traveling salesman to go to location 1, 2, and 3. Okay, still can be done. It's not too hard. Now, imagine if I take 30 cities within Mexico. It's a quadrillion problem. There are quadrillion ways of doing this, which a normal computer simply cannot handle. So, with a quantum computer, and that's called quantum annealing, this can be done very, very quickly in minutes, and that's called quantum annealing. So quantum annealing solves an optimization problem. It's right now being used by logistic companies. Imagine if Amazon knew exactly if it needs to send something somewhere, it knew the best optimal routes to send it by, right? Imagine how much it would save. So optimization problem is solved through something called quantum annealing. And then you come to quantum sensing. Now, quantum sensing is an interesting field because it looks at a different part of the problem. Quantum sensing gives us very precise information. So there are some compounds, let's say you want to mix 2 or 3 compounds. You can use so many different mechanisms to test how these molecules bind with each other, what do they do, what will happen next. It takes time. Now, it takes time, but it's still feasible. But imagine if you want to look at so many different compounds working together. Our normal computers cannot react that fast. It will not be able to do that very quickly for us. It'll take years and years and years to solve that problem. With quantum computers, that's very, very quick. It's able to look at compounds, how it will work together and make those calculations easier for us. Another example here is photosynthesis. It's very simple. We all know photosynthesis happens. That exact time when photosynthesis happens is impossible to calculate. You can only use a quantum computer to do that. And there are so many like this. So recently in the UK, there was a university, they've been looking at using quantum sensing to look at the magnetic properties within the blood, to sense that exact moment there's a change in the blood, in this magnetic composition of certain molecules within the blood. If they are able to get that exact second or that exact pinpoint that change, they can detect cancer early on. So it has a lot of very, very, and this is being used in Alzheimer's as well, drug discovery for so many different problems. And that's why it's such an important field and interesting one.
Okay, so it goes abroad all the industries and all
Yes.
wide range of issues and problems that we can solve. And
Absolutely,
in terms
yes.
of cybersecurity, that is your field, how this can be, I believe, or I suppose that it can be as helpful as harmful, right? So how does it look like?
The problem with cybersecurity, when we look at cybersecurity, is there's a lot of investment. So if you just take it, if you put it simply, we can say that there's traditional encryption in any form of communication. Everything that's transferred online, HTTPS, all of it relies on RSA, right? The problem with quantum computers is, should they become commercially viable tomorrow, it can break that quite easily because it relies on, so there's certain algorithms that the two main algorithms called Shor's and Gover's algorithm that make those calculations very easy to break to be able to break any kind of password, to increase the brute force strength to be able to crack passwords rapidly. And using those algorithms with a quantum computer, giving it speed and accuracy, right, would mean that you can crack most passwords in seconds. You can get a lot of data in minutes from any computer. That is the problem. We are not there yet. The problem is that we need to start preparing for that, because nobody knows an exact day and time when you get a commercially available quantum computer. The reason it's a bit tricky is because of the nature of qubits. Qubits they're very unstable. They need to be stored in very cold temperatures of minus 273 degrees. So because of that lack of stability makes it very difficult to put quantum computers in commercial environments. But there's a lot of work being done on this right now, so that might change very quickly.
What is a qubit? You were saying that.
So a qubit is so when we have this example of the library, the book that's open and that can be open or closed, that represents a qubit. The qubit is the smallest, it's the most basic unit that forms the quantum computer, right? And those foundational units are called qubits. I won't go into the details of the compound that's used, etc., but that's the foundation of it. And so when we talk about traditional computers, we talk about bits, whereas when we talk about quantum computers, we then just refer to them as qubits.
Okay, and in terms, you were saying like nobody knows the timeline or the day that this technology is going to be available for everyone. But do you think right now there are hackers or cyber criminals using this technology to develop or to cyber attack?
That's a very good question. It's not something I can say openly on on a forum like this, but let's assume that there are states, we know there are nation-based hackers, and there are nation states that have certain vested interests. So we can only assume that even if you had a nation state with that kind of capability, they will not openly disclose it, because it's not in the interest to say that they have it. They would rather quietly collect the data now and decrypt the data later, right? One can assume that those capabilities are being developed. Yes.
Right now we don't have that timeline, but do you think it's going to be something that we could see in a short amount of time? I don't know, 5 years, or how does that look like? I mean, you mentioned that we don't have a specific date or something, but how the timeline could look like?
Yeah. So we don't have a date. I know. For some reason, we all get very hung up on when we get a quantum computer. And I've been trying to ask people, so if the question is, how prepared are we should this happen soon? That's the more important question for me. There's a lot of risk. We are in the process of getting companies to understand the risk of what is the business impact risk, right? Should it come tomorrow? How are you planning on using a quantum computer, either for good or for any other means, or to actually protect yourself? And are you prepared, to migrate? Because the most important thing in cybersecurity that's happening right now, timelines are coming in to enable companies to say, well, this is really important. You've got to understand the state of your cryptography. You need to have a roadmap. You need to have a plan. And we expect that companies will migrate towards using the latest algorithms rather than relying on the older algorithms. So that transition will take time, it will take money. And that's where we are, is in trying to advise companies on how to make that transition. Because when it does come, it's too late. So in the UK, the NCSC, after years, have come out with a timeline for this, that they expect everybody to be quantum, crypto agile, and move towards post-quantum cryptography in about 5 years' time, which is not a lot of time. In the US, they have 8 years for all federal agencies to become secure. And that's a lot of work, because migrating is very expensive. It's going to cost the US federal agencies $8 billion at least to make this migration. And all the supply chain will then have to migrate as well. So it's a very complex exercise.
And how does that look like? Because we are facing the migration to artificial intelligence. So I don't know if is it going to be first that part and then quantum technology, or maybe there are some areas or organizations that will skip that part. I don't know. How does that look?
I think they're two related but also unrelated technologies. So if you think about AI needs large volumes of data. There are so many data centers that sprung up everywhere. So you're looking at large volumes of data that to facilitate and enable AI to get better over time, it needs a lot of data, which means a lot of data needs to be processed. Our current computers can't handle that. AI has actually enabled quantum computing to move more quickly because it can support with the needs of AI, right? In some ways go hand in hand. But if you look at it from a security perspective, they have different security threats. So with AI, you're more concerned about deepfakes, you're concerned about AI-based phishing, where they understand the users a lot more and it's more real-time, rapid attacks can be carried out. But with quantum computing, the risk is different. It's almost like flipping a switch. It can happen very quickly, and when it does, if you're not aware, you could lose everything. There are some fantastic research that's been done in the space that actually talk about what would happen in case of a quantum attack, which is worth reading.
And of course, we are going to have you in Infosecurity México. So tell us a little bit more about what trends or topics regarding quantum computing and of course related to cybersecurity you are going to present to us at Infosecurity México.
Great, thank you. I'm so excited to be there. I've never come to Mexico before, so really look forward to this. What I would like to talk about is I would like to talk to the audience a bit more about examples of quantum computing. Where is the risk? Where are the opportunities? What is the business impact of this? What is the link with AI as well? And a little bit about where the sector is moving in terms of talent, because there's one thing we have not been discussing, and those discussions have started in the UK, which is, look, we're coming to the point where we need a lot of talent in the space. How do you nurture the talent? How do you facilitate training in something so complex? Where we are at the very beginning of understanding what it actually means. So if you think about AI, a lot of boards did not realize AI was coming. Everybody was talking about AI for a long time. Everybody got sick of listening to the word AI. And then it happened. There was a ChatGPT moment where everybody said, now this is AI. Okay, this is how we use it, right? The problem with quantum, we don't have the time. Because when that happens, it wouldn't be, okay, let's try and use it. It'll be, oh my goodness, what just happened to to all the data we have had. It's going to cause so many security problems. So we need to get onto that now rather than, follow the same pace as we did with AI.
Yeah, and
so we'll probably unpack all of this.
Yeah, that's very interesting because right now we are seeing a lot of offer about, courses or certifications about artificial intelligence and how to take decisions inside the organizations to implement that. So we need to move fast.
We need to move
right?
quickly.
We
yes,
need to
absolutely.
be faster.
Yes, and we need to understand the risk. Companies don't have to do anything but need to understand their risk underpinning all of this and what they can do now, because either do now or throw a lot of money at it when the problem comes, right? So you can save a lot of money by actually working and implementing small steps before the problem occurs.
Yeah, that would be very interesting to learn about how to be prepared, how to know more about it, and of course to have those steps you are mentioning. If you can share with us like a final message for everyone that is hearing, what would you like to share with our listeners?
I would say, I think this is a very important field that we're actually talking about, quantum computing and its implications for different sectors. I would say definitely start looking into this. Let's also talk about opportunities, right? Because this area is going to bring so many opportunities. And I would say we need to start looking at how to prepare the next generation, the workforce for this. How do we start with training? How do we get people? Because it's a deeply mathematical field, but one thing that puts people off, how many women are in the field of quantum computing? I tried to find out because I was really, really curious.
I was going to say, like, you and
Yeah.
maybe and more. I don't know.
Yes, you're right. It is. They say less than 1%. I couldn't even find numbers on it.
Wow.
Less than 1%, and this is worldwide. So we need to shift that. We need to change that, and I think there are huge opportunities without having to go down that pure physics, mathematics route. There's so many ways in which quantum computing will impact the legal field. It will have implications for, because it'll break GDPR. It breaks so many privacy laws that we have. So there are implications for the legal sectors. There are, implications for logistics, for HR. So it's so many different areas that you could actually get into, and this can open up a lot of avenues. So yeah, I would urge people to come into the field.
Yes, and of course, education is the key, right?
Yes,
a lot
yes,
of
and no, absolutely, and I think I would urge people not to be put off by, you don't have to be a cryptographer, you don't have to be a quantum physicist. We have them on our team, and I couldn't do what they do. So, but you need to. But there are also people. So we gave a talk with one of the companies in the UK, Accenture, UK, and we were talking to business analysts about quantum computing. So we were saying how important it is, even if you're a business analyst, to understand how do you model the threat? How do you model that opportunity? So it hits so many areas within any business that there are so many other roles that one could look at.
Super interesting, Meera. Thank you
So-
so much for your
you.
time today and for sharing all this information with us. Of course, we're going to dive in Infosecurity Mexico and on September and October. So we are very excited
forward
to listen to your speech and everything. So thank you for your time today. And
Thank you for having me. Look forward to being there. Thank you.
Great. See you
Cheers.
on Infosecurity Mexico. Thank you.
See you then. Thank you so much. Cheers.